Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and I'm going to tell you in this video about the Keto Grey Zone. So what is the Keto Grey Zone? Well, it's a zone that you do not want to be in a ketogenic diet or on any diet, but frequently the people who are, well actually I'll say this before I give you the suspense of my intro. The people who are in the Keto Grey Zone are actually people who aren't even doing keto. So, I'm sure if you do keto stuff, you're familiar with the Keto Grey Zone, even though maybe it hasn't been given this name before, but I'm giving it this name. And I've talked about it with some people in the comments as well, so if we've talked about the Keto Grey Zone, then thank you for your input on the Keto Grey Zone. But the Keto Grey Zone itself is the area of carb intake between 50 grams and probably even a little bit lower, really, like let's even say 40 grams, but we'll call it 50 out of generosity's sake, to around 100, 120 grams of carb per day. Now, I have a similar video on this. I think I have a video where it's the one titled, 100 grams of carb a day is hard, but 10 grams of carb a day is easy, like something like that. And I'm talking about this more from the if it's your macro perspective, because essentially, like I said, most of the people who are finding themselves in the Keto Grey Zone are people who aren't even necessarily trying to do keto. They're simply trying to do lower carbs or lower calories, and they end up feeling like absolute shit because their body is still on a carbohydrate metabolism, but it's simply on less carbohydrates. Now, the point of that video was to tell people, hey, no matter what you're doing in a diet, either eat carbs or don't, right? You can't be in this gray zone because as far as people on any sort of fat loss diet, the main problem is that, if your carbohydrate intake is too high, then of course there are obvious problems there. But if you're eating carbs, eat them. Eat a good amount. And if you're eating low carbs, don't be in this gray zone. Go all the way because you will feel horrible. And a lot of times people will blame, I did keto and didn't like it, on this Keto Grey Zone, which is really the culprit here. Okay. So essentially, the Keto Grey Zone is where you do not want to be from 50 grams of carb a day to around 100, 120, 130. Everybody's size varies. But being in this area keeps you in a carb metabolism, but doesn't give you an abundance of energy. Your body is always going to feel its best when you're in a state of energy abundance. So even if you are, eating no food, right? Technically, there's no abundant fuel of, external energy coming in, right? There's no calories. You could fast for 3 days, right? And the first day is going to feel pretty bad, especially if you're not coming from a keto state. I mean, I pretty much fast 24 hours almost every day, basically, but it's because I'm coming from a keto state that it feels so effortless. But somebody who's coming from a carb metabolism can fast for a day or two, and after they deplete their liver glycogen, they will enter a ketogenic state, and their body will get the point, hey, we're not using carbs anymore, we're in ketosis. Okay? If you're not eating anything, you're still not eating carbs, and your body will enter a ketogenic state. And from there, this ketogenic state allows your body to have a abundance of energy without eating food. Personally, I believe that's the actual evolutionary purpose of the ketogenic state. And it's no doubt key for humanity's evolution, because if we weren't able to go days without eating, we would have died a long time ago. And ketosis is an adaptation to that, to give our bodies an energy abundance even when there is no external energy coming in. Okay, see how that works out? So what is that energy abundance? It is stored body fat. This is why we have such an ability to store seemingly endless amounts of body fat. And if you're somebody who, is new to this stuff, everybody talks about fat being 9 calories per gram, carb being 4. Oh, so just cut out the fat, right? That's like me telling you, well, let me apply this to body fat first. 9 calories per gram of fat, right? So even if you have a scarce amount of body fat, you now have more than double the amount of fuel you had before. So if you have a metabolic maintenance of 3,000 calories a day, Your body's going through 3,000 calories no matter what, after all activities considered. Essentially, if you fast, your metabolic needs are still the same, but now your body actually has to go through less fuel, less stored fat, because every gram of fat is giving it more than double the amount of energy it had before, if you're coming from a carb diet. So think about that for a moment. When you're not eating anything, you actually have more energy. This is why people are so evangelical about the keto stuff and the fasting stuff, because it's a feeling that people feel when they do these techniques, right? It does take some, startup effort to do this for sure. But once you're in it, it's so effortless and it has this sort of energizing effect because of how fat is used as a fuel and how abundant it is as an energy source. So this is why, if you're somebody who's new to this, a lot of the keto people, myself included, seem like wackos because I haven't ate anything today and it's like 9 p.m., did my other jobs in the day, and now here I am making videos, hammering you with keto knowledge. But that's the point of this. The point of that is to open your mind if you haven't considered it already. But for those of you who are already in the keto state, what I want to hammer home are some extra tips for you on avoiding and navigating around this, keto gray zone. So the keto gray zone, of course, if you see my other videos, even if it's not explicitly referenced, it's more so dependent on the types of carbs you're eating. It's more so dependent on how likely a carb is to elevate your blood sugar. This is why you can eat nearly endless amounts of vegetables, because vegetables are fibrous. They're not going to have a high glycemic response, so a blood sugar raising response. So you can think of the glycemic response of a food as how dense in sugar it is. That's kind of one way to wrap your head around it, is by, next time you look at a bowl of cereal and next time you see, some broccoli, you'll think, oh, the cereal is more dense in sugar, right? Depending on which cereal you get. But that's essentially the distinction here. And in general, the ratio of fiber to sugar will indicate how much of a blood sugar spike you're going to experience. But that's not always true. It's like 90% true though most of the time, as far as what you need to take away from this video. So take a look at the fiber. But if it's a processed food, this rule gets thrown out the window. You can watch my video on net carbs about that, because they are a lie. And that's the title of the video, net carbs are a lie. But how glycemically dense a food is, and the glycemic load is the most important thing. That's actually the term, glycemic load. It means how much blood sugar effect are you going to get out of eating this food. That's what glycemic load means. So write that down. Just write down glycemic load. That's all you have to watch out for, because that's the most important variable for avoiding the keto gray zone. It's simply avoiding a high glycemic load. So glycemic index, right? It's a thing that you can Google, will show you the glycemic index of a food. So each food will have a ranking, right, of how glycemically dense it is, but the total glycemic load is what actually matters. So example, maltodextrin is like the highest absorbing, quickest digesting sugar. It is the highest. It is the champ of the glycemic index, right? But if you have like a microgram that's in like a capsule, it's not going to have that big of a deal because the total load is lower, right? Does that make sense? So if you have a slow digesting carb, like pasta, for example, it doesn't mean, oh, I could fit in 20 grams of pasta because it's slow digesting. No, the glycemic load still ends up higher than all the broccoli in the world. So the point is, avoid glycemically rich foods. Avoid total meals that are going to result in a large glycemic load. So basically, stick to green vegetables and don't have any little bits of rice. Don't have any little bits of oats. No fruits either. I'll get into that momentarily, but I have this part of there's a 1-minute section in almost every video where I'm just roasting fruits as far as keto diets go. But you have to avoid fruits as well because they are high glycemic. Even if they are natural sugar sources, the fructose in sugar is the most problematic type of carb because it's going to go directly to your liver, and it can also create oxidative stress in excess of consumption. So as far as a keto diet goes, fruit is off the limits too because of the glycemic density. So density isn't really the term they give to it, but it's the one I give to it because it's easier for people to understand. In general, as far as the experience of the diet goes, right? Whether it's for, fat loss purpose or just your general lifestyle, because that's what I advocate keto for mostly, maintaining an active lifestyle, is the most important thing is to avoid these foods that will kick you out of ketosis momentarily, especially if you're new and especially if you're doing this for fat loss purposes, because depth of ketosis doesn't matter as much, but being in ketosis in general does matter. And eating these foods that will kick you out will ruin your experience of the diet, because it will send these mixed messages to you that, oh, okay, we're not in the ketogenic state. We don't need to go, preservation mode. We don't need to go to the default metabolism, right? Some people call keto starvation mode. It's absolutely not true. It's simply just your default metabolism, right? But I call it preservation mode because it's easier for people to understand, because it starts to protect your muscle tissue from being used, right? Which carb metabolism doesn't have any safeguards against. And from there, it goes to the default fuel, which is fat, which is why we store endless amounts of fat and why our brain is made almost entirely of fat. And our body is actually at least half fat, right? Depending on who the person is. But that's the point here. Your default metabolism is ketogenic, yes, but you don't have to do that all the time. It's simply that if you are doing keto, you don't want to be sending your body mixed messages. You want to be very clear with your body about what its fuel is going to be, because you have to allow it to tap into the state of abundance, and you have to be strict up front. That is the main key with keto, and it is the number one key to keto that will allow you to have a positive experience of this and use it appropriately. Because I know plenty of people who dabble in and out of ketosis all the time, right? You can handle it in as much of an amount as you want per year, but there is a purpose to it. I'm simply trying to help people find that purpose of where this fits into their lifestyle, because it has a purpose. I guarantee you, you just simply have to have the patience and the diligence to stick up with it at first. And that's the thing that really is something a lot of people should be proud of if they're doing in the first place, because, there is a lot of, I guess, temptation around, but once you get started with this, it's just allowing you to access a whole nother aspect of energy, vitality, and essentially you can put that towards performance as well if you're an athletic-minded person. Overall, avoid the keto gray zone. And I think this should be the last video I have to put out on it, but I'm sure I'll reference it in other videos. But the most important thing is this is a foundation of ketogenic dieting, no matter what the purpose is, right? Either way, unless you're using this for lifestyle, right? And you've gotten to a point where you're adapted and you're just simply eating keto as your default way of eating, like I do, and then you go out to a bar with some friends, have the sandwich, have the Philly cheesesteak, something like that, and then go back to normal. That's where you can get away with, you're technically eating in the keto gray zone, right? But from there, because keto is your default metabolism and you've, re-accessed it, it's no longer a problem for you. But this is something that's only afforded to people who have been in ketosis for a while, and for the vast majority of people, they haven't gotten there yet. So avoid the keto gray zone up until that point where this is a lifestyle foundation for you. Go and watch my other videos on the keto foundations in the Keto Essentials playlist. I'm telling you, those are like the specifically picked videos that I put out that will teach you all of the different boundaries of keto dieting. Right? So essentially, if you click that video, the Keto Essentials playlist, if you click the videos in there, by the time you're done, that's like a hand-picked course by me who made all these videos on which videos will give you the most specific knowledge on all the different boundaries of what you can do right and what you can do wrong on a ketogenic diet. So watch that playlist, start going through it. I encourage you to do that. You will learn vast amounts in simply like less than 20 videos, right? And a lot of them are, not as long as this one. So subscribe to me right now and like this video if you learned something new, even if it's something that, you're going to keep in the back of your head. Okay? So thank you again. My name is Anthony Romano, and stay tuned for programs dropping. I'm going to be putting out some. It's just taking time. And up until that point, hit me up. Go to the link in my description to my website, romanoketo.com, for keto coaching. One-to-one coaching, 24/7. I'm there. That's the nature of my coaching. But thank you again for watching. Anthony Romano. Peace.